Nole Nation. Welcome into another episode of the Renegade Rundown. As always, my lovely co-host, Jen Santee, aka at Jen Santee 1890. You can find her on X. In the bottom right corner, we got Deshawn Adams, aka at Deshawn Adams 18. You can find him over at X as well. And Plant the Spear One right underneath me, aka at Plant the Spear right here on YouTube. Make sure you get over there and subscribe. Double D's. Let's talk about it. Or football talk now. You can go subscribe to his channel as well. We'll get both those linked up in the description. We've got a ton of fun stuff to talk about right now as recruiting season is officially here for Florida State Seminoles. We've been telling you guys pretty much since last year what to expect. Florida State, Mike Norvell, the staff, they like to get that last official visit before the dead period begins. They want to be the last one to get you in there. There's all kind of different strategies. Some guys, they want to get those official visits. They want to be the first one. They want you to get it locked down early, or they want to have the ability to maybe sneak you out for an official visit at the end, or whatever the case may be. Well, like it or lump it, this is how Florida State does it. And this year, that strategy pays dividends. You strike gold, you get a guy in well, shoot, I almost said his name wrong. Who's the commit we just got, guys?
CJ Wiley.
Wynn.
Okay, CJ Wiley. CJ Wiley. I don't know why I just almost said the wrong first name, but CJ Wiley, we get him 6'4", 205 pounds. You get a guy that was, pretty much nobody outside of some of us and insiders, other insiders in the industry thought he was going to Florida State. We were pretty confident. We talked about him the other day on the show. He was one of these official visitors for this past weekend, the big weekend, the giant weekend. But sure enough, you've got like Dog Nation, all these UGA websites and writers from all the different Georgia outlets. They're sitting there watching him, decide his commitment between Florida State, UGA, and a couple other schools. And he picks Florida State, and you have like a 30, 40-second silence there where everybody's like, they're waiting on him to do the hat flip. When's the buck going to drop? And sure enough, nope, he's a Florida State Seminole for now. But first, the initial thoughts, I guess we'll go around the horn. Everybody on Landon CJ Wiley here on June 25th.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jess.
Okay. I will say I don't believe any commit until they show up and sign their paperwork. There you go. That's what I will say. But it's a good start, and you want those good commits. You want them. It brings a waterfall effect, and you never know. Maybe they will stick. Again, recruiting for me, I'm going to let you guys take this. So I will just say wonderful commit, and I love this coaching staff. I think they're amazing, no matter what anybody else wants to say about them. And good for them. They got the initial commit, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about it. Like Jen said, anytime you kind of get that surprise commit, you always wonder if it's going to stick. And I mean, who knows what it took to get behind the scenes to get him here, but the point is you got the commitment. Hopefully it does stick. Hopefully not only does it do that, but hopefully it gives you some momentum going forward. Hopefully he pops and a few other people pop. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as far as the commitment itself, if you do hold on to him, let's just assume that we do. I mean, this is a massive commitment for FSU. 4-star wide receiver, 6'4", almost 200 pounds out of Alpharetta. He has a 6'9" wingspan. I mean, this guy is like, man, when you see him, you see why they wanted him. I mean, beat out UGA and LSU. That's huge. Mm-hmm. Top 200 kid. And I mean, when you look at this guy, this is one of those big body multi-sport athletes. I think he does track and basketball. Used to do baseball too. Sub 11 second 100 meter. I mean, when I watched his huddle before we jumped on here, it was like, man, this guy can, for a strider speed where they're not quick, but like, man, he pulls away. He can create separation, and he can also go up and get it with that basketball background. So,
did you
68?
Did you have the huddle that you wanted to throw up there, Deshawn, or no?
Yeah, I have a huddle film.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're fine, man. I was just going to say 68 receptions, 1,473 yards, and 14 touchdowns last season as a junior. I mean, if you can keep him in the boat, this guy is going to be a difference maker for you. And I think really when you look at the high school recruiting going after a guy like this, I think it's where, like, we know they like to use the portal. and that's great. But I think there are certain positions in the portal where it's not guaranteed or hard to find players, the trenches, big body wide receivers, things like that. So they can address that at the high school level. And I think that's what they're doing now, especially with this class. I mean, this is a big get. I'm with Jen. We don't even really get in the weeds in recruiting on our show because, man, these kids ain't loyal. But, you know,
yeah.
We'll see. You know, we'll see.
It's a numbers game. There's no, it's not smart at all to like get emotionally attached to any single recruit, but it's very important, regardless whether this thing's last or not, to get these commitments at the different key points on the recruiting calendar, especially closing out the summer period, because you know we may not keep CJ Wiley, but as we've said, you know, we're looking at anywhere from 10 to 16, 17 recruits here in the next 2 weeks. We're looking at possibly one every single day. CJ Wiley was a bit of a surprise, and sorry to take your turn. I know you've got thoughts as well as I get those highlights up here.
Well, only thing I add is what I've already stated is, I mean, you want to be considered one of the best programs, you're going to have to get into these kind of battles, and you're always going to have to come across programs like Ohio State, Georgia, Alabama, such and such. But we have to stop thinking of ourselves as a second tier program. You know, a lot of times we've kind of knocked, as a fan base, we've knocked ourselves down to this, well, he's a Georgia commit and we should back off. And no, this is Florida State. And when we're at our best, we can recruit better or on the same par with a lot of these programs who are considered the kings of the table right now. We belong at the same table. So, I mean, I like his film. Like you said, Jesse, he's long strider, but he can get down the field really good for his size, man. He really stretches the field. He happens to have an elite level talent quarterback throwing him too. I believe it's Luke Nichols is his quarterback.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But as far as what I've seen so far on film and in a short time, just like you, I noticed a long stride also, and also noticed that he's a really good deep threat.
Baby Keon Coleman out there, man. I mean, really beautiful stuff. And I mean, he's got the size and everything right out of high school. Obviously, that's a lofty comparison. I'm not going to say he's going to be Keon Coleman out of high school, but you definitely see the comparison. You see the body type to get in here. So maybe if you don't get you know, the Moore kid, maybe you can hang on to CJ Wiley, and he's a big time player for you. It really was awesome seeing all those Georgia people just being in abject shock when he committed to the Seminoles. I don't see a ton of wide receivers in this class. You're only going to get maybe 2 or 3 tops. Another guy is DeLeon McCutcheon that we are all pretty high on. We thought could possibly be one of these in the next couple weeks. But yeah, you know, just to drive home, this one was a big surprise. We already have like all these dates lined up tomorrow. Shamar Arnaud is somebody who's going to be committing, and that's somebody we think Florida State has a really good chance with. This one's just a little early. Kevin Wynn was, a lot of people felt really strongly for him. Didn't realize that one was going to be so early. And now you see this one on the 25th. It makes me wonder if maybe the staff doesn't have them lined out like one commit every single day for the next 2 next 2 weeks. Like, are we going to have one every single day? Already with 6 commits, we've got 1 5-star, I believe, and 5 4-stars. So the blue chip ratio and kind of the ceiling of this class is you keep stacking these guys up. And as we go on through the show and talk about who we think might be next, it's pretty much blue chips across the board. I mean, we're not after many 3-stars at all. There's like only a handful on the board.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say to that too is a lot of people freak out about, I was doing some looking earlier, because like I said, man, we don't go into the weeds in recruiting. So then you're like, we're going to talk about recruiting, and I'm like, crap, I got to do some homework real quick. So let's get to looking. But you know, people freak out about seeing this class ranked 63rd, and honestly, you're dead last in the ACC right now. You're 17th, but that's not the number that matters. The number that matters when you look at, okay, you only have 6 recruits, right? That's gonna your average is not. Your average is what matters. Your player recruit ranking average. And so when you look at the recruit ratings, and I use, for those of you who don't know, I use 247 composite. That's the rankings I like to use. But their average recruit rating is 94.1. That is the highest player average in the ACC. That's higher than 9 out of the top 10 classes right now. Only Ohio State, who's the number 1 class in the country right now, has a higher average at 94.18. So not by much. 14 teams above Florida State don't have a single blue chip recruit in this class yet. 24 of them have one or less. Florida State, like you said, man, is 100% 6 blue chips. So right now, you just have quality. And once they start popping, you'll see that number climb up. So, man, it's not really about how much you got. It's about what you got. And right now, I mean, they got one of the best, like, they're the number 2 class in the country if you go by recruit rating. And so to me, that's more impressive because, you know, you've seen them take guys in the past because they needed bodies. Now they're trying to get dudes because they're at that level. Like, you know, like Deshawn was saying, I mean, why are people scared to recruit against Georgia and LSU? I get their machines right now, but this is Florida State, man. You don't back down on any of these guys. You recruit nationally. You can go win nationally. You can go do all these things too. And so you got to get in these battles. And right now, I mean, this class, although the numbers are low, I mean, this is a really impressive class when you look at it from the quality of player you're getting.
Yeah, man. People, that's just total. I call them like yahoos or like whatever you want to call it. Like if you're talking about and comparing, I think somebody on Twitter made a post. Look at us, 70th in recruiting, only 4 commits a couple days ago. It's like, yeah, but you realize we're about to get 10 plus commits in the next couple of weeks. Like, look, if July 10th, come to me. If we're 70th, 50th, or whatever, July 10th, then we got a problem. You know, it goes without saying. It's kind of why I started the show to explain to guys like. We waited till the very last second to have our big official visit weekend. Like there was no other college in the rest of the country, June 21st through June 23rd, that had a bunch of top 50, top 100 guys there because they were all at Florida State. Like, I mean, that was a huge weekend. And the fact that so many of them on the hook, so many of them are predicted to Florida State on top of all the surprises and things like CJ Wiley that are to come. It's pretty beautiful, but we can move on, I guess, from him and talk about the second commit. This one happened yesterday. Another bit of a surprise. I'll let Deshawn start off with this one. What is the commitment of 4-star defensive lineman Kevin Wynn, aka I believe his nickname is Juju as well. So I think there's like 10 Jujus in this damn class.
Yeah, but Kevin Wynn, man. When we talked on the show, you can bring that up for me, George.
I got you.
When we talked about this particular player, I was really high on and I was really enamored with because of his violent knack for causing destruction in the middle of the field. He plays with very active hands. He moves, gets to the ball, and he finishes. As you see in the film, he finishes. It's one play, I believe he tackles 2 players at the same time or something, but he's really active, and he fits Odell's criteria for what we've seen in the past of defensive line. I know there's often been some question marks with Odell and things like that, but this is the prototypical type of Odell ball of clay that he can mold and turn into an all. This is the kind of defensive tackle that ends up being an All-American at Florida State. Just by looking at his film, I can see so much of certain defensive tackles. I won't say names, but I see it in him.
Shit, I will. You think he watched Timmy Jernigan film growing up? I think he did.
Yeah, a little bit of Jernigan there. Actually, a former defensive tackle that transferred, Bishop Thomas. I see a little bit of that in him. Just active. I ain't gonna just throw a bunch of names out there, but as you see, he's very powerful at the top and point of attack. I like this pickup.
Yeah, 6'2", 320.
Yeah.
You look at the national composite, he's number 195 overall, the number 24 D-line in the nation, and the number 29 player in the state of Georgia. And that goes back to what Deshawn was just saying. Jen talked about this topic too. Like, yeah, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some against Georgia. It's just how it's going to go. But I mean, they've got 12 top 100 kids, 20, 30 top 300, top 500 kids. There's a lot of good players in the state of Georgia. We're looking at a 4-star, the number 195 player, and that's the 29th player in Georgia. So Georgia can't sign them all. They just simply can't sign them all. So there's going to be plenty of players available, and also Florida State is just going to beat them out for some guys. Like they did for Landon Thomas. They're going to hold on to some Luke Romanhawks, but they're going to lose a KJ Bolden or 2. But as we look down the list, here is yet another kid from this one, Kevin Wynn. He's from Greensboro, Georgia, at 6'2", 320. He's going to be able to really do some pretty things. when you look at the commits that we've had so far, we saw it at wide receiver. We're starting to get those type of athletes like a Keon Coleman that you missed on out of high school with the Michigan State. You're getting them, like Deshawn was saying, out of high school. Well, it's the same thing with D-line. I mean, we were getting Pat Payton, Joshua Farmer, guys that were a little undersized coming in and really changing, molding their bodies, bringing them to another level. But you're seeing with some of these guys like Javian Hilson, now Kevin Wynn, they're getting bodies in that have a much better chance of producing and competing for some of these death spots early, which is like exactly what everybody was talking about. I've said it a million times. Florida State is not going to take 30 guys every year. They don't have a formula like Jimbo and Saban. And even Kirby now probably has, we're going to take this many yada yada this year, this many this year, this position. No, they're going to look at what's available and what they need, and they're going to get the absolute best possible players for their situation they can. Last year, that was DBs and wide receivers. This year, it's offensive line and defensive line. And, to have Solomon Thomas, Javian Hilson locked up, to get Kevin Wynn, and now some of the guys you're looking at down the road, it really is a beautiful time for Florida State, Seminole Nation. And as we continue to talk about these names, I mean, it's just 4-star after 4-star after 4-star after 5-star. Really, really a beautiful thing. Did you get a take on Kevin Wynn?
No, yeah, man. This one kind of makes you drool a little bit because I mean, it's like you said, this is Odell's typical type of guy. And it's so funny that you come on here. Cause like, if I could show you the notes on my phone, like I was hesitant to say it cause I didn't want to sound a little out of pocket on here, but I literally have written down like Timmy Jernigan as the player comparison. Cause I was like, you saw some people talking about Robert Cooper-ish type of space eater. And I'm like, no, to me, he's quicker, he's faster, he's more athletic. He's more violent. He just looks like a baby Timmy Jernigan on film. And I mean, this is a guy who can take on and split double teams. He can stuff the run. He can create havoc in the backfield. I mean, he had 30 tackles for loss his junior season, 50 plus in his career. I mean, this kid now, I guess the only thing maybe I would worry about with him is maybe the quality of competition he's playing against in high school. But I mean, he dominates them. So I'm sure throughout camps and stuff, that's how he got his rating, or whatnot against good competition. But man, this is a guy you got excited about. One, from what you get on the field. And two, I mean, you beat out Texas, Georgia, Bama, LSU, Florida, Miami. And, as Deshawn said, I mean, there's been some question marks about that recruiting at that position. So not only do you get a good player, but you get a win for let's say, I mean, frankly, a coach that needed it. He needed this recruiting win to kind of put his name back in the game. And there's some other big fish on the hook that if they can land them, man, that's going to be a good class for Odell. So I think this is a kind of a resurgence of that defensive line recruiting. And man, this is a big get for Florida State because we saw how lack of impact defensive tackles affected this team recently. And then you saw what it did to have good defensive tackles. So you get a guy like this coming in, man, this is going to kickstart this defensive line. So I really like this.
Yeah.
This land.
Love it.
Beautiful guys that are going to be able to come in and develop. They're not going to be asked to be a big part early, but all of a sudden you turn around and next year, 2026, 2027 down the line, you see some nice players coming up through the ranks and steadily kind of replenishing that room. I think Florida State will always have kind of like a 70-30 portal split. Maybe it gets to 75-25. But yeah, they're just, to get them out of high school, it's just another level. If we start bringing in top 10 classes in high school consistently, having those, 92, 93 averages, it's trouble for the rest of the country, period.
Yeah, and 6'2", 320, and he carries the weight well. It's not like, and I'm not picking on the kid because he could probably throw me around like a rag doll, but KJ Sampson was a guy that came in big, and he looked like he needed, a year or so in the weight room. I think with this kid, the way he carries that 320, I mean, you wouldn't have guessed that necessarily the way he moves. I think he can contribute very early. Like you could probably see some situations as a freshman or possibly, I mean, as a sophomore, you could be a solid rotational player. So I think this is one you can get on the field early too. Which you're going to need because you're going to have to replace some guys coming up.
So
he changes the room.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah, for sure. There's no young players like him. There's no, true sophomores on the team like him. He will definitely be a guy that could come in. Maybe somebody like Gerald Jackson, closer to that size. Obviously, he's not 6'6", but with the ability to play that kind of nose tackle position.
Mhm.
Before we talk to the next defensive line, I've seen some people asking about possible edge rushers, and I want to talk about 2 other defensive tackles. I'm gonna go ahead and play this. We'll play the comments that has everybody up in arms, acting like this kid's just gonna flip back to Georgia. I don't agree. I think he just said what every other recruit in the world would say. I would say there's literally only 2 people in our class, J.V. and Hilson and Solomon Thomas, that have came out and said we are locking down our recruitment. Our recruitment isn't open. Pretty much everybody else. That's just how the process goes. And I would also add the context that I don't think there was a single FSU reporter in there. He's got everybody he knows, all the local reporters, Dog Nation, all these things and cameras in his face. I didn't expect anything more or less. So let's hear what he had to say, and we'll all go around and we can react to it. Oh, sorry, let me get the volume fixed here.
Now my recruitment's still gonna be open.
Do you feel like you're kind of done with the recruitment process? It's Florida State all the way?
Now my recruitment's still gonna be open. My other schools can still like recruitment and stuff, but yes, I'm with the Noles right now.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Last year we saw
I didn't hear the controversy there.
Choose Florida State. Georgia kept recruiting. I think Kirby's big about I'm not going to stop recruiting you just because you're committed. Will you be receptive to a school like that continuing to recruit you down the line, or how open do you think the recruitment's going to be? So, I mean, it's still open. Like I said, I just committed to the Seminoles right now. I didn't sign any papers. I'm just committed to Seminoles. Do you think so?
All right, so that's it. That was it. About 20-something seconds. Basically, he said his recruitment's still open. He's committed to the Seminoles. He hasn't signed his NLI yet. We could start with Jesse and go around the room. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, what I say when we open the show? These kids ain't loyal, my friend. So, I mean, you never know. Even like honestly, nowadays, even when you get the ink on paper, they can ask for a release from the NLI. So, it's until they're like
they don't even need it. I mean, they can transfer as many times as they want now.
Until they're going through, until they're going through tour duty. Like I don't count them on the team. So, we'll see. But I mean, it's not. I'll say this: it's not encouraging, but I think that it's probably for you want to kind of keep the door open, I think, nowadays with NIL, because just from a kid's perspective, I mean, I can say I don't love it, but I mean, we saw where Georgia, we assume, dropped a massive bag for KJ Bolden at the end. So, I mean, if you leave that door open, the thing is, even if you commit, they're not going to stop recruiting you anyway. So I think you kind of leave that door open for them to start a bidding war for you. I mean, even with the kids that did lock their commitment down, you think that the staffs aren't going to keep reaching out to them? They are. So, I mean, to me, man, again, words don't mean anything, but I mean, you're in a good place. You got them to commit in the first place. So, I mean, that's at least a good step. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to just buy into anything solid now. But I mean, it's not encouraging. But he's in the boat, so you got him, and now you just got to keep him. So
yeah, for me, it's all's fair in love and war. I mean, it's recruiting. Recruiting is fluid. We all know this. If you followed it, actually for as long as I have, everything is subject to change, and you got to keep recruiting. You got to keep recruiting the kids, because we're out here trying to do the same thing. We're recruiting some of the kids we're going after. They're already committed somewhere else too. So, I mean, it's just part of the game.
Yeah. And I mean, again, I know we've talked about this 100 times on the show. Let's say he flips, then he gets to Georgia. Things don't work out. Marvin Jones Jr. comes right back to Tallahassee, which he didn't flip from us, but we were down there right in the last 2. So again, you at least if he does flip, you keep that line of communication open. You never know what happens, man. This free agency is a wild thing in college football.
Yeah.
Facts. Yeah. With these kids, 17, 18-year-olds, nothing. You could know everything you need to know, and with just the way the wind blows, everything could change on a dime. Sorry, Jen, did you want to comment on the audio?
No, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I just the comments from him is normal. And again, with these kids, like, this is just normal. This is just normal. I don't know why anybody gets all worked up about it, because this is how they've always been. And I don't know if anybody remembers this. I'm going to age myself here, but does anybody else remember when Greg Reed reopened his recruitment?
I do.
And was sitting there at a bar in somebody tell me where he's from again. I have it on the Valdosta. Yes. And they had that whole special, and then of course he stuck with Florida State. But again, this happens. And Georgia sucked then. They hadn't won anything since 1980. So again, these things go through cycles. It's always going to change. I don't really know what else to say. So it is what it is. They're going to make their choices. They're going to change their minds, or they're going to stick. We can't just get upset about it, and we can just be excited that we got the initial commitment. That's all it is.
I would also say something that just popped into mind when she was talking was like, you said how that room was primarily like Georgia reporters and stuff, like Georgia media. I wonder if those comments would have been the same if it was primarily Florida State media that he was talking to.
I mean, you could hear the question too. This is Georgia this, Georgia that. Georgia did this with KJ Bolden last year. Like it's absolutely, the kid just said what any kid would in his situation, in my opinion. I don't think he said anything out of the books. That doesn't mean he won't flip everybody. What everybody said, everybody's absolutely right. But the perception, getting the guy now, for the momentum it brings, all that stuff, it's all plus. All great for this recruiting staff.
Hey, if you didn't expect to have him in the class, then it's a bonus. And if he doesn't end up in the class, well, you didn't expect him to have him in the first place. So it is what it is.
Exactly.
Facts. Jumping back a little bit, the defensive line, of course, CJ Wiley, 4-star wide receiver. If you're just joining the show, 6'4", 205 pounds, just committed today. Yesterday, Florida State locks down the commitment of 6'2", 320-pound 4-star defensive lineman Kevin Wynn. There's 2 more defensive tackles that are pretty high up on Florida State's board. They were just here for officials recently. One being a flip from Jalen Wiggins. So we're all worried about a guy that literally just committed today, possibly flipping. But here we are talking about a flip from a defensive lineman when there was a whole big stink made about this when he committed to Florida. I believe it was right around the time we got Hilson, either that or Thomas. So we were like, dude, you're whatever. At this point, we signed a way bigger guy. He's in Tallahassee. And my comments at the time, and what my comments will continue to be when people bring up Florida trying to flip people or Florida doing this with players, is I'm going to take our 9.5 win total, our reservations for the ACC championship, over Florida's 5.5 win total and what they're going to do there in Gainesville. So yeah, any battle with Florida, I love it. James Coleman called in the other day. He dropped his big black crystal balls right here on us, and he said he's calling it right now. Jalen Wiggins is flipping from Florida to Florida State. So he's got me all in. I've seen him continue to show up on campus. I was kind of leery, kind of wondering when he committed to Florida. I think he just wasn't maybe getting the attention he wanted from Florida State at the time, because they were working on Hilson and Thomas and some of these other guys. At this point, I'm really, really high on Wiggins. So Jen seemed like she wanted to go. We'll flip the rotation this time, and we'll start with her.
I was just going to say with Wiggins, I agree with you. But I sent you a message about it. Just check it.
Okay.
That's what I would say.
Okay, Jen. Well, what about for the show?
It is.
I'll check it. I'll check it.
Yeah.
All right, so Deshawn, I guess.
Yeah, I go. If you want, I can bring some film up on him too. But I would categorize him more of a jumbo athlete. He plays defensive end. He could probably project as a D tackle at the next level. Also tight end. I mean, so that tells you his his athleticism is on a different scale. Quick twitch, for his size. I love the pickup. He's a local kid in the area. You got to keep the kids home. I mean, and one thing we remember, you get everyone else's kids and you keep your kids at home. That's always the thing with recruiting. In the heyday, Rickards, Lincoln, Leon, all those kind of high schools in the area fed the program, other than just like South Georgia and here and there and going out and about. But this would be a great start to start continuing to build that wall around the Big Bend and stuff in those areas, and getting those little counties around Tallahassee, keeping those kids home, making it mean something to stay home.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got a kid who's out of Tallahassee right here in your backyard. It would be really, really big to land him, to flip him from Florida, more so just to keep him from going to your rival Florida out of your backyard. I mean, that's obviously not what you want, but he's only been committed to Florida since January. Maybe he's not an immediate flip, but you just got to see how things play out in the fall. This is something we talked about on our last show when we did touch on a little bit of recruiting, is like, I don't want to set anything in stone right now, because a lot of these programs, this feels like, you know, could be a transformative year for some of these programs around here. I mean, if Florida goes out and you know, kind of craps the bed and wins 4 or 5 games, they might be doing a coaching change. South Carolina is another team that, like, I know we're not in it for a lot of them guys, but like
just for the sake of this conversation, and we can get into all that, the long ride all the way to December 4th, but just for the sake of this conversation, we're talking about and predicting who's going to be committing here in the next 2 weeks.
yeah, I'm just saying that, like,
absolutely.
he very well could flip, but like, you may, even if he doesn't right away, I mean, this thing needs to play out through the fall, because you have a lot of teams that could be doing coaching changes, and I mean, that's a big thing. So regardless of wins or losses on the field, I mean, you could stomach a 5-win season if you know they're going to stick by their guy. But if you have to go through a coaching change and you have to relearn all that again, because now, you know, early signing period is basically signing period now. So like, if they might still be looking for somebody or building their staff, so that's might be your best opportunity to flip.
Yeah, definitely. I think the prediction from James, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he was just saying he ends up at Florida State, but I think the idea he flips pretty quick. But you're absolutely right. All these things go through the season, and you know, thus is my confidence on any recruiting battle against Florida. For a long time, we had to worry about, you know, in the Willie years and the first couple Mike years, like, you're just selling a dream, because it's going to be, we know it's going to be rough on the field. It's really nice now, after going 10 wins, 13 wins, now, like, with confidence, with the easiest schedule we've had since he's been here, with the most talented, you know, roster from a blue chip standpoint that he's had since he's been here. All these things, it makes you really feel good about what you're going to do on the field against every team except for a Georgia, Ohio State. Those are going to be some that you've just got to win those battles outright. And I feel strongly we will. The other one is Myron Charles, before we get into edge rushers. This feels like one, he's like kind of the opposite of CJ Wiley. Like, he is kind of chalk to Florida State. If somebody else were to get him, it would be a bit of a shock. I haven't heard anything to that effect. I'm still expecting him to be a Nole, but it's kind of tough. If you'd asked me last week and even the week before, are we going to get all 3 of these? I don't think so. I'd be happy with 2 of the 3, but you know, we've got James telling me Jalen Wiggins is a Nole. I've got everybody telling me Myron Charles is going to be a Nole for months and months, and now Kevin Wynn's already here. So, are we going to get 3 4-star tackles in this class for Odell?
This one I'm also interested in, just because I like the pairing. You got Wynn that looks more like a 3 technique, and then Charles here, it's solid as a 1. They just, for me personally, I want both of these 2 particular prospects in Garnet and Gold, because I just think they would combinate really well together. They'd be able to work well together in on the interior. If you see the film, if you remember the Wynn film for our viewers, if you see and you know what you're looking at, you can see what I mean when I say how they would pair together and be very active up the middle. But I do honestly think we do get Charles also.
Yeah, that's a massive guy. First off, I mean, that's what I like about him. And I think the pairing is good too. I think that sets your future up at the defensive tackle position. Like you said, you get your 1 and your 3 technique, and then you still have some other guys in there as well, especially if you could add, you know, the other defensive tackle, if you could flip him. But man, I think this is one, like you said, you feel good about it. They felt good about it for a while. This seems like to be the one everybody's betting on. You know, maybe you don't really like some of the other schools that kind of got involved here, especially like a Texas or something like that, because, you know, kids nowadays are swayed by NIL, and you see what Texas is doing, lining up 6 Lambos on the way to the practice facility and all that stuff, which is something that you don't see in Tallahassee. You know, they're more of a, like, let's show you what we can do for you. Let's get better. That's why they have so much success in the transfer portal, because it's more of a business transaction. But, you know, when you have that type of stuff going on, it's hard to kind of kids, you know, you're 17, 18 years old, man. It's hard to ignore that stuff. But I still think Florida State, I still think this is the one that you feel good about here.
Yeah, for sure. I love it. I love it. And if you can get all 3 of these guys, I mean, it just goes to show, like we've been telling you guys over and over and over again, for the better part of a year, right here live on YouTube, and even before that on my audio only podcasts and the different spaces and things we used to do, articles on the website. This class, the 2025 class, is going to be the best class to date, and it's going to be all about offensive line and defensive line, and you see it here. Some names at defensive end, some other names that Florida State is after. if there's one that's a slam dunk that I'm just spacing on, feel free to bring it up. But I feel like on your second and third edge rusher there, there's a lot of really tough battles you're in. You're gonna have to really sneak and shock some people, but you do have a good chance. I think of guys like, Jared Smith and shit, who's the other one? Jared Smith and DJ Pickett, and some other guys like that. We can go around the world. We can start with Deshawn this time. What are your other options out there besides JV and Hilson that you're hearing or liking at defensive end? You think we got? Go ahead.
I mean, we've thrown all the names out there as far as your edge guys with JV and Hilson. Other than JV and Hilson, is what's been said already. You just mentioned his name, Smith out of Alabama. I don't think we're in it really for Justice Terry. That's the only other defensive end that I know about, edge, that we've been recruiting. As we know, Zion Grady is currently committed to Ohio State. But I mean, if you look at what we took last year, the portal and then the freshman, and then you add in Hilson, I think we're okay, to be honest with you, because the versatility that if we get Wiggins is he also plays the edge. He's 255. So, I mean, he's looked at as a guy that if we moved him inside, we'd have to redshirt him anyway to gain weight. But he naturally plays edge. So it's about versatility also.
Yeah, no, I agree. And really the one name that I've heard is Jared Smith, 5-star. But the lean is towards Auburn. And I mean, obviously, they flipped, I forget his name, the guy a couple years ago, the big defensive end that we had.
Keldrick Falk.
Yeah, Keldrick Falk. I mean, their coach is, I mean, if anybody's going to do anything sketchy to get a player, we already know he's okay. He's okay with doing sketchy things. But I will say to that, I mean, it was disappointing that you saw Zion Grady go to Ohio State. But at the same time, I mean, the one that puzzles me a little bit, and maybe this has to do with something that we'll talk about later in the show, another topic coming up, but the Nicholas Clayton committing to Wisconsin when it was like all signs pointed to Florida State, and then from what they're saying, the last minute it turned into a no-take situation. So that makes you think, if they told him no, did they get a yes from somebody else? And so to me, that's what you look at there. But I also think you make a good point too, where like Durajai is still young, Marvin Jones Jr., unless he has like an amazing season, he's probably coming back for at least one more. So you have some young guys to build around too. But yeah, that's the only thing for me is seeing that one that was a slam dunk to FSU go somewhere else makes you wonder if they got kind of a silent okay on somebody else. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But man, I mean, if you could land Jared Smith, that'd be freaking huge.
Excellent. Yeah.
Understand, Florida State can flip these players just like these other schools do. All of a sudden, Patrick Payton and Joshua Farmer and Daryl Jackson and all these guys have first-round grades and went off, and we're absolute beasts. You will start to see some flips happen, and it's everything. It's not just one thing. It's all encompassing. Florida State is getting better at these visits. They're getting better at getting commits early. They're going to be better on early signing day. They're also going to be better at the later signing day. They're going to be better at doing the flips. Teams fall off. One thing you see, just the ability, the consistency to bring back the entire staff, those things start to really pay dividends around year 5, 6, 7. It's what you're seeing with Kirby Smart now that they're pretty much dominating college football. So Florida State, look for these things to pay off. Who knows, like you guys both brought up, who knows what staff is going to get fired, what offensive coordinator is going to get canned, et cetera, et cetera. So I love the fact that we have a shot. There's 5 out of the 20 top. I can't talk. 5 out of the top 20 odds to make the college football playoff are all ACC teams. It's Clemson, it's Florida State, it's Miami, and then after that, it's NC State and Louisville. Florida State, you ask me, they're headed to the ACC championship. We're going to see if we can win that thing, get to the playoff, make some noise. The sky's the limit. It's going to be a lot of fun. But let's finish this out before we get into.
No, wait, I have something to say.
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. For the chat, guys, I let the men do the recruiting, especially the ones who haven't committed yet. They want to talk about the positions. I can do that too, by the way. This doesn't make me an idiot. I'm not a robot. I'm not a blinking person in the camera. This is actually getting ridiculous. No, go ahead.
Chat. come on, man. Like, if you got a problem, Jim, whatever, point them out. We'll kick them out. Like, if you can't come in and enjoy the show, and have fun, if all you come in here to do is talk shit and whatever, get the fuck out. So
Right. Why are you here? You know what I mean? If you
we're
don't like it,
here
what
to
are you here
have
for?
fun and talk Florida State football. That's it. Not whatever the hell is going on in the chat right now.
Yeah. But I will touch on one of the things that you said to back that up is I think Florida State right now, one thing you really have going for you is that you are one of the most stable programs in your recruiting region outside of maybe Georgia. I mean, Florida, again, could be looking at a coaching change if they have a poor season. Miami, yeah, I mean, they went all in on Cristobal, but they haven't won anything yet. So who knows there? South Carolina, who knows? I mean, if they have a terrible season, he could be out. Mac Brown's 900 years old at North Carolina. I don't know. Clemson seems to be on the downfall. One thing you heard about with the CJ commitment was that Dugans had been recruiting him since he was a freshman. Yeah. So now you're starting to see those long-term relationships are starting to pay off. And as one of the more stable programs in the Southeast and one of the programs who's actually trending up, again, Alabama, we don't know what they're going to do. Auburn, I mean, they had an up and down season, but we don't know what they're going to do. And so I think that is an advantage for Florida State, is being stable and on the come up, instead of some of these questions where, these programs where maybe they got their guy at coach, but they just haven't had any winning yet, or maybe they're on the downtrend. So I think that will pay off as the season goes on as well.
Facts on top of facts on top of facts. Again, guys, if you're not already subscribed to Plant the Spear, they are right here on YouTube at Plant the Spear. Also, on X at Plant the Spear 1, just like me. I'm at the Renegade Report, or at Renegade Report 1 on X, but just at the Renegade Report right here on YouTube. Deshawn also has his own channel as well as his partner that he helps out with his channel. If you want to go ahead and plug your YouTube channel before we move into, I want to talk about our Director of High School Relations that has recently been released, and then we can talk about the second half of recruiting once we get our stuff together and get back on that track there. But yeah, go ahead and plug Double D's and all that good stuff.
Okay, it's Double D's Let's Talk Ball podcast. Also Double D's Let's Talk Gaming. Those are two of our channels. And then my partner's channel, it's all pro NFL. We'll start to get into a little bit of college and things too. Not specifically one particular college, but overall, it's D's Corner, DSCORNER, D's Corner. And just please like, share, and subscribe. Just give us a follow.
Boom, you heard it here first. They are really, really great content on NFL, and they cover each division. They break it down in the division. So if you want to hear how any of your favorite Florida State players over there, Deshawn's got you covered on that side, and his partner more so just NFL. So really go check that out. And I'm gonna have to check out the gaming channel myself. I would love to, they've got Twitch, they've got all the different streaming things that's just video games. But who knows, with NCAA 25 coming out, that's maybe something we could do fun with our members and stuff like that. So all the above is fun. But yeah, as we're running low on time, we could talk recruiting for hours and hours, but we got to cover this big news story. Ryan Barto, the director, I might be butchering this, but director of high school recruiting or high school relations, as it matters to recruiting, has been let go. What's everybody's initial thoughts there? I'm going to go last on this one. Jen, do you want to go, or do you want to wait till he comes back around?
I mean, I would love to hear people's thoughts. I mean, I heard that there was some rumblings, that he wasn't as active in the recruiting that he was supposed to be, right? So I did hear those things. I did, he had a personal tragedy, which I absolutely empathize with, but the rest of it I don't know, so I can't put anything on that. It was not that surprising because we've all heard kind of some of the rumblings, I guess, that there were some issues going on there, but I truly hope that I do think that, they're going to make a very good replacement for him. And I don't think anybody should be that upset about it. But me, I'm nosy and I love drama. So I just want to know the story. So that's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Facts. That's why I said I'm going last on this one. I want to see what everybody has to say. So go ahead, Jesse.
Man, I don't. look, I can just tell you the one couple. Well, first off, I don't want to go into like personal stuff because I don't want to like paint someone's character if I don't know it to be true. There are some, maybe some. I'll just say that there are some personal things that have been rumored that I won't get into. But the other thing that kind of maybe is more tailored to the job is maybe there was some misreading of recruitments, and that was something that maybe where like the thing that I hinted at earlier, where maybe you passed on the one defensive end because you thought you had another defensive end, and then it turns out he goes somewhere else. You miss out on both. So I think that maybe was kind of the things that I've heard. And again, that's just rumors, but I think you have to look at a couple of things. One, he was good for Florida State. He helped them get to where they're at, back on track. But the person that I trust the most is Mike Norvell. And we've seen that every time he's had to replace somebody or bring somebody in, they've done a great job with it. So I trust whoever he goes to get is going to be probably an upgrade, because I mean, let's face it, like we've all said that Florida State's high school recruiting could be better. And so this is an opportunity where maybe you can find someone to elevate your game at the high school recruiting level. So, I don't know exactly what led to it, but I mean, it seemed to be an abrupt ending. So it makes you feel like Florida State moved on versus the other way around. So I'm sure they had valid reason to do it, and I'm sure they'll find someone suitable to replace him.
Yeah, to piggyback off you, Jesse, I agree with everything you just said, man. I just look at it as you look at the staff situation, like we've all heard some of the rumors and things, but we're not, not at liberty to really explain. It's people's personal lives, things of that nature. You just wish the best for them in the situation. And my understanding and what I know, Mike has a huge, what you used to call a Rolodex. He has a huge list of coaches. And if that, what I've heard is true, that position has already been filled. It's just hasn't been announced yet. So just roll with the punches. We know what this is, and there's always been preparation. Mike has always had the next man up, always since he's been here. It's always someone's gone, someone's there.
Yeah, in that line of thinking, piggybacking off kind of where the conversation has gone, this is to me more than anything akin to a Marcus Woodson. He helped you turn things around. He got you coached up. He helped you with those evals, getting in some good DBs out of the portal and things of that nature. Did great, but just wasn't quite hitting, some of the same exact things that were just said about Barto was happening in the DB room. And you think you got this guy, and who was the DB coach when this Travis Hunter thing happened, and things of that nature. All that stuff is true. And what did they do? He took off. He got a job at Arkansas. What did we bring in? Patrick Surtains, So are we going to be all right? Are we going to be better? Hell yeah. When they got here, one of the biggest, complaints was they didn't have a ton of ties to Florida, and kind of, the all-encompassing kind of the kids get some, and he was a good guy to bring in, somebody that came up being at all the different recruiting camps and stuff. I forget whether it's 247 or which one of those he was a big part of. So yeah, he served his purpose. As far as his performance and kind of the personal thing that people have kind of been hitting at, anytime you lose a loved one, family member and stuff, like, it's terrible. How it affects everybody is different. And if he decided he wanted to retire and go off, that'd be his prerogative. However, if you decide some people want to just bury themselves in their work and work 100 hours, but regardless of anything that happens, there's an amount of time. You have like a grace, but then it's like, boom, we got to get back into this thing. We've got to get going. And college football is unforgiving. It's hell. It's whatever, 365 days a year, 20 hours a day. Every coach will tell you that you got to make time for the family and this and that. Just so happens the time for the family, maybe the football team is there for the cookout too as well. That's just the life. Being in the office, crazy. You won't see a behind the scenes or a biography or any kind of anything about any football person without that. So as bad as you feel, that's all there is to it. So can't wait to see who they fill the position with. We can get us into conspiracy theories. One of the thoughts that came into my mind was a young lady that they hired not too long ago who was supposed to be a badass. That was some part of the recruiting staff. But that kind of cycled through my mind pretty quick, went down the line. And one of the favorite names on Twitter, there's a guy named Hove that is in a similar position at Louisville, who happens to be like a big part of everything, the wave they got to happen up there. Whether the funds end up matching it or whether he had
I mean,
the
what wave?
support
I don't
that
know
he
what wave we're
needed.
talking about. All the kids leaving or not getting paid. So I don't know.
That has nothing to do with what his role would be, though, Jen. That's
I
all.
know, but like, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
No, it's fun to pick on Louisville. But Hove, as I was saying, has like the inside track on pretty much when it comes to Florida football and all these different things. He's right in there on it. And all those people, whatever, they wouldn't even, all those kids wouldn't even have been having on the phone a chance for Louisville to come through. With all that went down, despite his best efforts and all these things, you got to think he'd be jumping at the chance to come to Florida State, where he would be able to walk in there with that logo and things of that nature. And I'm not trying to put any words in anybody's mouth, but we'll see how it works there. But I'm curious if anybody else has any names that they've heard of from any of their sources, or just off the tip of their hat, somebody that they think would be good for that.
No,
not really. I actually, when you texted me this morning, I was like, what? Like, oh wait, he got fired, so I had to look into it. But I mean, I agree with Deshawn. I think probably if this was a Florida State initiated move, which it does appear that it was, I'm sure they already have a name. They've already reached out to some people. I know, you're going into the dead period, but I'm sure with all the recruiting stuff that's going on, they said that he was like pivotal in the 2026 quarterback we got, but then you saw Tokar's kind of take over later. So maybe this is something they've been planning on for a little bit to make the move. So I'm sure they probably, have something in mind there. And as far as the guy at Louisville, I think, something that may be interesting from his perspective, if you're trying to think long-term, and, if it's your place of employment, you always want to think long-term. Yeah, they just got a new coach and they had some success, but, let's just say the ACC falls apart around everybody. They're probably, it's not like Louisville's going to go broke, but they're probably not going to end up in the Big Ten or the SEC. So, you may be looking at an easier path for a guy who works in recruiting to be at Florida State in one of those conferences in Florida. So, that may be something to think of, but I'm sure they have somebody.
So I'm
Does
pretty
anybody
sure
think it's Kenyatta Watson, maybe?
there's a good guess.
He's not at Georgia Tech anymore, so I don't know. I don't know if he is currently employed or not, but I know they moved on from him at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, not sure, but that is definitely a name to look for. A guy that is in that kind of world. Maybe he was trying to move up and it didn't work out. So maybe if you can get him back in that sweet spot, that would be somebody to look at. I think I found maybe kind of the reasoning for some of these moves that's been happening. Just about 30-40 minutes ago, it started being reported the NCAA Division I Council has approved a rule change that will now allow analysts to coach during practice and games. Had initially been expected to pass last year, now a year later has officially been approved, effective immediately. So all of a sudden, Ernie Sims, you've got your Patrick Surtain, bam, kind of coaching guy in your linebacker room out there, along with the old ball coach, the old head coach, and Randy Shannon there. So that's a beautiful thing. All of a sudden, those analysts, they're huge. And as Chris is alluding to, Ernie Sims was here, known publicly to have been here for several weeks before it was announced. And then he was even here longer before that. So, yeah. And I don't know if this extends to the director of high school relations or not, but it will definitely be interesting moving forward. And that's huge for analysts. Guys, anything on this? I'll go back around the room and we can get back to recruiting and stuff and finish that off.
I'll add another name that is going to make it interesting with that new rule. Rick Stockstill, his years of service as a head coach. Now he's actually being able to be a little bit more hands-on in the passing game.
Totally forgot
concepts. You got to remember that can change route concepts, things that he did at Middle Tennessee State, I believe. And then his knowledge, of being a head coach for as many years as he's been, that's invaluable. Also, you really can't really grasp how important that could be to moving the offense forward in certain things with the passing game.
Oh, yeah. I'll piggyback on that because that was a name that I was going to bring up too. You got a guy with 20, 30 years of coaching experience and now at least with the analysts too. I mean, if you got guys that can get their hands in on that, you can also maybe help develop the younger guys a little bit better because they can get more individual work because you just have more guys to spread the wealth with. But also Ernie Sims. I mean, how big does that hire look now? I mean, I don't know if they knew. I don't know if they had a tip up on this or something like that when they made that move. But if they did know this was coming, I mean, that's some 3D chess move right there because this is that's huge. I mean, to have Ernie Sims as your linebacker coach now, I mean, that's not your linebackers coach, but ability to coach the linebackers. That's huge, man. So this is going to be a net positive for Florida State for sure.
Yeah.
And you may see them expand that Polo Army too, now that you have this as well.
Yeah, all of a sudden that analyst role, I mean, it is a coach. And so, yes, even though whether we don't know what extent he's allowed to participate in recruiting, we know those analysts do in some capacity. Yes. But regardless, even if they're not allowed to recruit at all, it's part of the recruiting pitch that you get to get coached up by Ernie Sims. That's part of it. Just like a Patrick Surtain. That's huge. To be able to have Randy Shannon, to have the grizzled veteran, the guy that we know is getting it done, all that, and then to have that pro guy coach, yeah, it doesn't get any better. It'll be harder to keep a hold on analysts. It's all of a sudden, it's just that much valuable. It'll be curious to see what the kind of range of salaries change to from whatever it is they're making $250,000 a year. So.
Yeah. And I love the Rick Stockskill option because that would leave Miami just sitting there, just eating their fingernails and their cuticles. Because, I mean, I think they're still throwing bombs on Miami, actually, right now, aren't they? At Middle Tennessee? I'm not for sure, but I'm pretty sure that was a blowout.
Facts. Yes, that was one of the greatest games ever. Spear Addicts throwing a theory out there. Technically, you can make Sims the linebacker coach. And Randy Shannon co-DC. It doesn't really matter as far as coaching. Yeah, let Sims coach him up, let him be co-DC, and handle whatever the recruiting duties are. Maybe you talk him into flipping it as Randy Shannon gets up in years and wants to work his way out. Who knows? There's all kind of different things they can do there. But you absolutely love it.
Well, and too, if you have analysts that are able to step in, that can also allow those coaches who can recruit to be away from their position, away from maybe coaching a little bit more often to go recruit heavier. Now, of course, this rule is for everybody, so you're going to have to compete against everybody in that space. But, I mean, honestly, if we're at practice, let's push Ernie Sims on in there anyway.
Think about it. You can exploit it. You can all of a sudden start hiring your recruiting guy as your on-field coach. And your coaching guy that sucks at recruiting as your analyst, but he's really the linebackers coach. You've just put a glorified recruiter, your Tim Brewster or your whoever out there, so that's very curious. Some teams are definitely going to try to exploit that, I'm sure, and we'll see if that ends up, how that ends up going. It'll be a lot of fun to watch, but guys, I've got the number up there, 850-495-1906. If you have any questions, any particular crew maybe that we haven't got to, any coaching position, anything like that, now's the time to get a call in if you want to, as we're live right here on YouTube. Please hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We're usually about 45% unsubscribed people. So if you guys could just, however many of you can just hit that subscribe, can't tell you how much it helps the channel, and it's totally free. We really appreciate you guys, and just hit those buttons for us. The next couple days, we already talked about earlier, Shamar Arnaud. You're pretty high on him. Let's talk about him for 1 second before we move into the rest of we'll talk about some of the top targets left, and we'll call this thing a day. How confident are you tomorrow on him?
I give it about a 6 to 7 out of 10 for his commitment tomorrow. I'm high. It's high enough. I'm really just, like I said, we get to the point right here. I'm excited about the commitment. I believe we do get him. But it's December's a little while away.
So that's a whole other conversation for sure. Yep. But just for now, we'll talk about who we can get committed. They do have crystal balls in there for him on 247. I'm not going to pull up all the different sites, but favored there. We saw how that goes. Kevin Wynn, not Kevin Wynn. CJ Wiley was all Bulldogs, and he went to Florida State. So we could definitely miss out on him, but that would account for our commit for tomorrow. As we have a last-second super chat here from William McMillian. Go Noles, beat Miami, and that's every day of the week, month, year, always. Fuck Miami, fuck Miami. But yeah, Arnaud, 6'2.5", 170 pounds, another Georgia kid, Carrollton, Georgia. So that would be 3 days, 3 Georgia kids in a row. Let's see what happens. I love it. June 30th, that would be skipping a couple days, but that's another big day. I don't know if I'm reading into this too much, but Byron Lewis said he would commit if Greg Thomas did, and we know Greg Thomas is scheduled for June 30 to pick between Clemson and Florida State. We can hear from everybody. What's everybody thinking on that? Do you think we get both in one day, or how do you think that happens?
Yeah,
Well,
I think we get both. Go ahead, Jesse.
No, I was just gonna say I think you get both because I think you're both. I mean, you're in the lead position for both. So if they're willing to go at the same day, I think that tells you what you need to know right there. I think Zay Thomas is a Nole. I mean, again, this is another top 300 DB. You got look at your. I mean, you got Surtain recruiting him. He doesn't miss very often. So if you can get him and Byron Lewis, of course, is FSU lean as well. So I think if they're gonna go the same day, I think you're going to get both. So that'll be probably two at once. Now, whether he does or not, we'll see. But I mean, I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, I agree. I've already spoke. I believe we get both also.
Yeah. All right. What about your boy Booby, Jabari Antone? Is he a no?
I don't think so.
Jen says no. What say ye?
For me, if I had to pick a number out of 1 to 10, I would say right now he's in the middle at 5. Just don't know right now. I'm gonna put it as a 5 out of 10 right now. We get him. Just so many other factors playing in right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I think going on with that one. So I would take the field at this point is where I would go.
You have anything on that one, Jesse?
Not particularly. I haven't heard a whole lot of smoke that he is a Florida State lean. So I would say
bit of a surprise that he decommitted when he did. The former tennis or LSU commit. We'll see. We'll see. There's only so many. We're not going to take a ton of guys. Ladarian Clarity is another guy that I felt like since day one, if Florida State really pushed, they could get him. He'd be a Nole. I'm not sure how hard they're pushing or what exact conversations they have with him, but I think if they want Clarity, they end up getting him. July 2nd is a big date. Tavian Wallace. I'm all in like as much as you can be. You never know what these kids are going to get, but I haven't heard anything different. I think Tavian Wallace is all Nole. Are we all in agreement on that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he is too, and I think that's huge. I mean, you gotta win this one. I think this is the one that you need to win. And man, would it be massive for that position, for that recruiter? I mean, I don't know if maybe you like pick up the phone and say, "Hey, did you see that Ernie Sims can coach you now too?" By the way, so like maybe that's a last minute sell. But yeah, man, I think if you get him, this linebacker class is one of the best you've had in a while. So
yeah,
that's huge, man. If you can get him, and I think he will end up a Nole.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that, just like I said about Wynn, he elevates the room. Excuse me.
Yep.
The where the floor of the room is higher than it's been in a long time. He's an impact player in that particular room, and then also hearing, I believe he is a Ernie. Ernie is one of the guys that's been involved somewhat with that recruitment. And now with the news that we have, hands on even more. So, I mean, yeah, I'm really high on that commitment.
Boom. Love it. Love it. Peyton Joseph is the last one out of this one list of guys we're going to talk about. He is July 4th. We saw Florida go up against Memphis for Antoine Hill and lose. That's the guy that I kind of lean Memphis like forever. So I wasn't surprised, but it's just hilarious that's it. They left just the top two, Memphis and Florida. They got their ass kicked.
Can you imagine?
For the trolls, we really need Peyton Joseph to be a Nole. That's what I think. So Jen, tell me, we're not going to get embarrassed, right? It's not going to be another one of these Memphis things.
No. I think from his visit to Memphis, and I think also with his visit to Florida State, I think you can tell where he's leaning. I don't think this is a big secret, and I don't think it's a big secret for the Memphis staff either. I don't think they're going to be hugely surprised. I think they know where this is going, and I think the Florida State staff knows where this is when that is going. But I will say, I am buying Antoine Hill's jersey from the University of Memphis. I can't wait to do it. This man said no to Deion Sanders and the University of Florida and chose the University of Memphis. Sir, you are a legend. You're an icon. I love you. Good for you. I'm going to wear your shirt. I'm not sure which game, and it's not going to be the Florida State game. I can tell you that. But what I will do is wear whatever NIL you've got, because you are my new favorite Memphian. Thank you.
There you go, hot off the presses. The next kind of group, we'll just run through these as we've hit an hour and 5 minutes. We're about at the end of the show here. Josh Petty is a guy. August 12th is going to be when we find out about him. So going to be a little while. I'm leaning FSU. We've talked about him a ton on here. Dylan McCutcheon, the wide receiver. I think he ends up, or Dalen McCutcheon, I think he ends up being a Nole. He was kind of the only wide receiver I was really high on as far as getting to sign here in the summer before CJ Wiley popped off there. Osman Kroma is one of the top running backs on the board. Florida State's been after him. It's been a kind of on again, off again relationship. We'll see what happens there. Max Buchanan is another name at offensive line that's kind of got pushed to the bottom with the huge names with Lamont Rogers and Ty Haywood and Peyton Joseph and Solomon Thomas and all these names. I think maybe you get Buchanan if some of the other guys, if you don't get Haywood, if you don't get this or you don't get that. I feel like he's one of these guys that if FSU would just go all in on Buchanan, they could get him, but I'm not sure. But we talked about DJ Pickett and Jared Smith earlier. Vernell Brown, it's going to be so hard to get him from Florida, but you see, supposedly he really is giving them an idea of a look. I'm when he doesn't go to Florida, then I'll say great, but until then, I don't believe it. Gavin Nix, more of a Miami guy, but who knows? Maybe the new analyst rule, maybe they are still holding out hope they can get him in here, but I think Tavian Wallace will be enough. Gavin Nix is going to want to be the guy in the class that he's going to go to Miami. And Joshua Moore, they're predicted to Florida. I heard Chris say that he didn't believe that. Any comments, any thoughts, to close out recruiting before we call it a night?
No, you touched on everything for me.
I'll just say, yeah, I think you get Peyton Joseph in the boat. I mean, really, when you look at that Memphis battle, the biggest thing for me is that big check that FedEx cut. So, it's probably got to be a pure NIL play for Memphis. So, I don't know, man. When you take the visits, and obviously you play this year, so that would be, maybe that'll sway if you can kick the teeth out of Memphis or something. Who knows? Which I think that's a pretty decent team there. But I think you get him, and yeah, man, that's pretty much it. The only other one I know it's coming down the line. Oh yeah, the thing with the Josh Petty. Apparently, his sister is going to Florida State next year, so that's like a big part of his decision. So, man, I mean, you could really put together a cornerstone offensive line class in this group, and man, this could. I mean, obviously, we've seen that. What Atkins can do. I trust in Atkins. We've seen what the offensive line recruiting can do for this program, and I think this would be a transformative class. And then the one non-blue chip guy I'm looking at too is Hollis Davidson, which is a guy that everybody thinks they're going to land.
Chase Lofton as well.
Right. I would say Chase Lofton too. I think they take both because your tight end room kind of needs that influx of talent. So yeah, man, I think there's still some out there, and it's the next few days are going to be big for this class. And I mean, you start racking up 2 weeks, you're going to start climbing those rankings, and then that'll calm everybody's waters a little bit there. But yeah, I mean, I think they did good, and I think this is a staff that again, man, we talked about this on our show before, where you build that culture, and you get guys, you want guys who are the fit and family. They don't BS around about that. So they're not just going to take everybody, and they want to make sure it's the right fit. They want to make sure it's right for them. And that's why you don't see a lot of impact guys leave this program either. And so, now that they're in with these bigger fish, sometimes it takes longer to get them in the boat. So these things may take a little bit of time to develop. But yeah, I mean, I think they got it going, and July 4th, hopefully we get more fireworks than just regular fireworks. So
beautifully said, my friend. What a fun show. Appreciate everybody for joining us tonight. Again, we can go around the room. Where can they find you, Deshawn?
Double D's Let's Talk Ball podcast, and also D's Corner, DSCORNER, D's Corner.
I keep wanting to call you James. Jesse.
I answered or whatever. It's fine. Yeah, man. Just check us out at plantthespear.com. That's our website. We have written articles, links to everything over there. I got 3 articles that I'm trying to write, but we keep adding commitments, so it's taking me longer to get them out. But now is the time also that we're digging into things, looking at all our opponent previews and all this type of stuff, where we really dive in to the schedule. So we're going to be getting ready to crank out some content coming up for you guys soon. So check us out there on YouTube and social media as well. And again, appreciate you having me on, man. Always a blast.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, Jesse. It's been
Definitely.
a while.
I know.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
It's summer. I just, I'm like a sloth. It's so hot out here. I don't move unless I have to. It's too hot for this mess. I'm ready for fall for more than one reason.
Yeah.
All I do is get in the pool because it's the only thing you can do. It's the only thing you can do.
Amen to that.
Boom. You heard it here first. We love you guys. I'll leave you guys with a little bit of our guy Trub Life and Noles versus everybody, and we will see you all Friday, probably around 7 Eastern. And who knows, we may have another 2, 3, 4 commits by then.
Hey man, they had better work for everybody. Let go. calling plays. Damn right I'm bitter, y'all sweeter than lemonade. Texas ain't shit to rave about. The Longhorns only good at a steakhouse. Had y'all like number 3, I was like, no way. Y'all lost to Oklahoma, which means y'all just okay. And Washington not important. Y'all be some ducks acting like that's